conference will now be recorded.
We're ready? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. The time has come to call to order this meeting of the Technical Transportation Committee for Tippecanoe County. Appreciate you all braving the cold to be here today. We'll proceed with the first agenda item being the approval of minutes from the previous meeting. I will entertain a motion. Go for it.
I was going to second. Moved. Seconded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any discussion of any kind? Seeing none, I'll proceed with the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Unanimous. The minutes from the last meeting have been approved. Next item on the agenda is access permits. NDOT?
Yes. So I don't know how much I said at the last meeting. We don't have a permit manager right now. We've had someone acting and will continue in that role for a bit. It's a position that we're not allowed to post and fill at the moment because of transition that's going on. So the acting permit manager did get this list out. So I know we missed a few lists over the months, and I'm not sure how much you guys are familiar with. I do know at the top there are two I just want to mention. Jeremy, we have a senior living complex. They applied on January 2nd for a commercial permit. That's State Road 38 at Park East. You familiar?
Yes.
Okay. And you guys may have seen back in December, which wasn't that long ago, Wawa did finally officially apply for the 52 Veterans Memorial Southeast Quadrant. So we have those two. Those are the newest permit applications with commercial drives.
No questions, comments? Thank you. Next, we have FY 26 through 2030 TIP items. And so Doug, you're up for that. And well, actually, it's your show from here on out. We'll just work our way through.
Thank you. Today is a very critical day in terms of the developing of the new transportation improvement program. So unfortunately, you're going to have to little less listen to me a tad bit more than normal. I need to do some explaining information because if the general public is listening to this, they have an understanding of what's going on. And there's basically two parts we're going to be doing here. This first part is leading up to the next part. That part is the very important part where we're going to discuss allocating our federal gas tax funds for the next 5 years. And basically, when it comes down to it, committee here will be the ones making that determination or recommendation on where the funds will be going. So in order to make that decision, there's a number of things we need to look at beforehand because, of course, these are federal funds. This first part here, there's actually 3 pieces to it, and it involves basically complete street compliance review, carbon reduction program funding, and protect funding. And the first part is back in 2012 when we adopted the 2040 transportation plan. Our policy at that time was that if any local projects were requesting our Group 2 funding, they needed to be complete street compliant. So since that date and every development of the TIP after that, we did this review to see if indeed the projects that are requesting federal funds are complete street compliant. And then basically looking at this section for the complete street review, we looked at the new projects, the previous projects that are already in the TIP, South 9th Street, the Soldiers Home Road, Phase 1 and 2, the Yeager Road project, 600 North, 50 West projects have already been found complete street compliant. So the review and then your determination that these new 3 ones are complete street compliant are critical. The first project is requesting federal funds for Phase 3 of Soldiers Home Road, and this is from Calbear Road to what will be County Road 425 North, a new road. And the project's scope is reconstructing the road to urban design with stormwater drainage improvements. Non-motorized amenities include new sidewalk, multi-use trail, which will connect to existing trails. The second street project is a Salisbury Street, roundabout at Navajo. This project was identified and came out of the NDOT safety project. When that information was presented, it identified the need for 2 roundabouts, and this is one of them. And the project scope is to include constructing a roundabout at that intersection, and non-motorized amenities include new sidewalk, multi-use trail, and of course will connect to existing trails. And then the South Street Phase 3 project, this is from just east of Creasy Lane to Red Cloud Trail in the Mayo Mile. Project scope is converting existing shoulders to curb and gutter with enclosed drainage, upgrade the signals, and then non-motorized amenities include new multi-use trails, improved bus stops, and street lights. So when we did our review of these 3 projects, we found all of these 3 new ones were indeed compliant with the complete street policy. And now we are asking your determination to affirm that they are complete street compliant. And we need a motion and then a vote on that.
I
Questions?
just have one quick question, Doug.
Yes.
You mentioned sidewalk connectivity on one of the previous projects. Is the same the case with South Street?
South Street, with this location, there will be connectivity with the existing project, well, with basically the reconstruction that was done through NDOT years ago.
So the east end.
So this is the east end. The west end is now or will be under construction fairly soon, and then there's a second part to it, and then this is the third part.
So let me try again.
Okay.
So this one is Phase 3, Creasy to Red Cloud.
Yes, basically just east of Creasy. It does not include the intersection.
There is sidewalk Red Cloud to the east.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so this is Phase 3. So it's just continuing. Might have missed Phase 1 and 2, which will have sidewalk, and this is just this piece just finishes up South Street?
Correct.
Okay. So there'll be sidewalk all the way from Sagamore to Red Cloud or I-65, basically.
Correct.
Thank you.
Want to add something, Jeremy?
I was just going to say that our trail master plan shows trail on both sides. And so, yeah, it would include trail on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, the first phase right east of the Sagamore Parkway intersection is being developed right now. And the next phase that would take it just past Creasy Lane, looking at applying for Safe Street for All funding. That is a project looking to use or tap into those funds. And then phase 3 would use our Group 2 funds.
Okay, Doug was requesting a motion there.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further questions or discussion? There appearing to be none, I'll proceed with the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Going on to the next part, this addresses fairly new funding, carbon reduction program funds. And this basically, the purpose is to reduce transportation emissions through the development of carbon reduction strategies and by funding projects designed to reduce transportation emissions. Basically, there are 5 activities which projects should address: alternative fuels, energy efficiency, active transportation modes, transportation demand management, technical solutions, and then there's an unspecified catch-all category. And the reason why we're doing this one and then the Protect funds is because the Federal Highway Administration wants specific review and basically proving that the projects that will be requesting federal funds are eligible and address these 5 issues. So normally we wouldn't take it to this level, but since Federal Highway in the past has wanted this detail, that's why we're doing this funds and then the Protect funding. So we have reviewed the project requests. We have it listed, and we have it whether it's active modes or other technology solutions. And then in our review, internal review, we have found that all projects that are requesting federal funds support at least one of the 5 activity categories and are thus eligible for carbon reduction funding. And since, yes, we could handle this internally and just say they're good to go, we thought, again, that this committee review and recommendation that we could use these funds just basically helps, I don't know what you want to call it, Federal Highway, so that, yes, we did have a separate body actually looking at these projects, and yes, they do meet the intent of these funds. Is that clear? Questions, comments? And then again, we need this, the committee to actually determine that all of the projects that are requesting funds are eligible for the carbon reduction funding.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Appearing to be none, I'll proceed with the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous, actually.
Great, thank you. And then, of course, the same thing with Protect program funds. And these funds, specifically, just summarize it here from the staff report, is to make surface transportation more resilient to natural hazards, including climate change, sea level rise, flooding, extreme weather events, and other natural disasters through support of planning activities, so forth and so forth. So again, Federal Highway Administration in the past wanted us to review the projects to make sure that these projects will address and be eligible for these funds. And like that, we did our internal review, and you can see a summary of the projects and the activities they support for all the individual ones, and determined that they are eligible for Protect funds. And again, we're asking the committee to do the same as we did for the carbon reduction program funds. And again, basically trying to address climate change. Questions or comments?
So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you for that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Appreciate that. No further discussion. I'll proceed with the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I heard everybody. The motion passes.
Great, thank you. Now we're coming to the exciting part of the agenda. This is where Again, this committee makes the recommendation as how we allocate our federal gas tax Group 2 funds over the next 5 years in the new TIP. Before we actually jump into that, of course, we need to have a bit of information to make these decisions. And there are a number of things that we look at when we made our first cut recommendation. And the first one, of course, that we discussed the previous tech meeting, safety performance measures. Of course, we need to look at safety and these projects, whether they are addressing safety concerns. You see in terms of the safety performance measures that were just recently adopted, and then also 2023 data in terms of fatalities and injuries. And then we did our internal review, and then we did find that the 9 projects will improve the safety for pedestrian and bicycles. They will also improve road geometrics and therefore improve safety for motorists. And these projects should contribute to the reduction of fatalities and serious injuries after they are constructed. The next piece of information that we need to keep in mind when we allocate these funds, we've had these 8 measures, and we've used these in the past for a while. Is the project in the 2050 MTP or long-range plan? Is it in the financial constrained list in that plan? Was the project previously programmed? Is it advancing? How far is the project advanced? Does the project include sidewalks, bicycle lanes, trails? Project complete street compliant, designed to meet ADA standards, access management needed. And then for all of the projects, I have yes or no's to kind of fill in the blanks for that. So when we discuss the allocation, we need to keep this in mind that there are some projects that are already advancing, whether they be in PE or in right-of-way. Those should receive higher priority, especially if it's in the MTP, the bike infrastructure, complete street, and so forth. So basically, need to keep all of that in mind. Another thing that we look at and need to include in this analysis is red flag investigation, and that is a very initial or first cut look at environmental impacts. We have done those for the previous projects, and we have done those for the new projects, and the information is in the staff report. We did find that every project requesting federal funds will encounter some type of environmental issue, and these issues need to be monitored closely when the projects are in the preliminary engineering phase and while they go through the NEPA process. So basically just wanted to again make everyone aware of that. Another requirement the feds have is that in our long-range plan, we have goals. Specifically, we have 9 of them. And the information in the staff report lists all 9 goals. And then also the various projects, how they address those goals. So in our internal review, we have found that there are some that address more or less 1, 2, 3, or more more goals, and that all of them holistically do address at least one of the goals. And this next thing is something rather interesting and new that we did, that we suspect that the Federal Highway Administration in our certification review that's coming up fairly quickly, we'll look at public outreach and how have we addressed that. We do have a lot of different techniques we use in getting this information out specifically for today, inviting the public to this meeting, but we wanted to include a new one, so we thought a survey would be good. Initially, the survey was going to be both electronic, that you could use or access through like Facebook or Marketplace, and then we were going to basically visit different grocery stores and meet face-to-face with people. We were like targeting Payless, Aldi's, specifically grocery stores that you would see maybe a higher concentration of lower income and minorities attend or go to. But we unfortunately couldn't do that. The stores that we asked, we had to stay outside, and this was in December, so we decided, well, at this point, we should probably do it next year, earlier in the year when it's warmer. So anyway, question one basically looked at what mode the people use mostly. And of course, no surprise, it was personal vehicle, cars. The second one asked what type of media do they get information from? And actually, not surprising, more people are relying on the internet, such as Facebook, Nextdoor, Twitter. And then the second question, or the third question, excuse me, it was kind of interesting in that we asked them, if we gave you our gas tax funds, where would you put the money to? And we gave 8 different options, the 8 being other. And the number one, the vast majority was to reconstruct or repave roads in poor condition. Number 2, improve safety on dangerous roads and at dangerous intersections, and then it goes down. We do have a short survey, or not survey, a report regarding the survey. And especially, it was rather interesting, that last question I mentioned, there were a significant number of people filling in the other. I believe it was like 168. So it's interesting reading through all of those. You know, one of them that kept popping up was improve railroad crossings. Some have just general information. You know, there was some street lighting, traffic, signal coordination. So anyway, we're not going to get into those, but just make you aware that, you know, we did this survey to kind of help guide the allocation process with that one specific question. Okay, so now we're going to get to the fun part. First, just tell you again in the staff report, the amount of funds we have. Each year we can program up to $6,541,470. And that is broken down into several different categories. The biggest one, of course, is STBG funding, which is a little over $4.3 million a year. We also have the 10% set aside for specific bicycle and pedestrian projects, which the South Street project qualifies for. Transportation alternative funds, a little over $500,000. Carbon reduction, a little under $500,000. Protect funds, $178,000 change. And safety, HSIP, $797,000. And then penalty funds, $186,000. So, and then also a bonus, in 2029, we have an additional $2 million for that year, because last month we did a trade with the South Bend MPO. They had a project that went way over their engineer's estimate and needed $2 million. So we had the funds readily and available, so we made the trade. So in 2029, we have an additional $2.2 million available. So the next page is actually a summary of all of the requests made for federal funds. South 9th Street, Phase 1 and Phase 2, construction. The emergency vehicle preemption, we have construction again. One part in Lafayette, one part in West Lafayette. South Street Phase 3, which PE, the request was for 28 funds and construction in 2030. Over on the west side of the river, Soldiers Home Road, Phase 1 and 2. You see the funding for right-of-way and construction. Phase 3, you see funding for right-of-way and PE especially. Yeager Road and Salisbury, the roundabout, request for PE funding. And then the last project, the urban portion of the 600 North, 50 West project. That project, even though it says 5.9 million, it's going to be a lot more than that. And Stu has requested Group 2 funding to handle the rural portion of that. So the hopes is to use the 2 different funding sources, and that will be enough to construct the entire project. Overall, we had a request for $42.3 million. Well, the bad news on the next page is that we don't have enough. We have between the 5 years, $32.7 million. And the request is over 9.6 million. So now we need to kind of roll up the sleeves and decide how we're going to allocate these funds. One thing I need to mention also, unfortunately, NDOT is still sticking to their rule, is that the funds we have in each fiscal year must be used within that fiscal year. We can't move those funds to another year unless we decide to trade with another MPO. We've been fairly successful in doing this. I think we've got it down pretty well, especially, in light of what we did last December. So, and then last year we also did a 3-way trade as well. So we do have the ability to do it, and we have done it. So if there is a need for additional funds in a certain year, we can show that we're going to trade an MPO in there with another MPO, and they're fine with that. So, but overall goal is we would like to stick to the minimal number of trades. It's a lot of work. So if we could do maybe just 1 or 2, that would be great. At least that's what I hope. So now I guess the drum roll here. To kind of help this process in terms of doing this, we have looked over internally, and the staff report addresses this, is we have looked at all the funding requests and how we can financially constrain each year so that we can afford a certain number of projects. Top priority, since we're looking at construction being a higher priority than the other phases, we have the South 9th Street projects, we have the Soldiers Home Road projects, and then now with Stu's 600 North and 50 West project. So we have this nice working spreadsheet here of the requests, and if we need to make some changes, you see the requests, and we have it broken down by each year, the amount requested, and then we have next to that the allocated column where we can actually change the numbers, and that at the bottom line will give us a balance. And the overall goal is try to allocate all of our funds that year. And then basically we would like to leave them all as a zero balance. But if we need to move funds, we can do that. But again, try to keep that minimal. So, so far, any questions or comments? I'm sorry. I know this is a lot, and we're throwing out a lot.
Yeah, just one thing. So do remember that one of our goals is to try to get you as close as possible to those 80-20 splits, where the federal aid portion of the project is the 80 and then the local match is the 20. But obviously, as Doug said, did I say that wrong? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But as Doug said, we do have more requested than we have available. So there may be cases when the locals can kick in a little more, and you may be getting closer to 60-70% federal, but that's probably still better than paying all that local. So just wanted to remind everyone that that is part of this exercise.
Mm-hmm. So looking at the 2026, the first fiscal year, we had requests for funding for 4 projects. And that would be funding the first phase of South 9th Street, vehicle preemption for the Lafayette side, right-of-way phase for Soldiers Home Road, and then PE for the 600 North 50 West project. And again, looking at that gives us, we would overspend by over $80,000. So in looking at how we could actually do this and make it as physically constrained as possible, our recommendation would be to put funding for South Street. The construction phase is the number 1. And the emergency vehicle preemption, since we have a smaller request in funding in 27 than we do in 26, we are hoping that if we switch which side of the river gets funded first with the vehicle emergency vehicle preemption system. That would balance it out, and if that was doable. And then the other request would be then for right-of-way for Phase 1 of Soldiers Home Road. And when we looked at this, we came up fairly close to zero. We were just over, $12,000. So at some point, we would like to just reduce one of those three by that amount. But overall, if we do that, we would then have that year physically constrained. And this is where I'm going to open up to, again, that's just our review and our first cut recommendation. So this is where the committee members would then discuss this, whether this is good to go or no. Let's look at how we can move these around and so forth. So now I'm going to open it up to the floor for the committee members.
All right. So effectively, in that first year, you're only 12, all the requests are only $12,000 over.
We cannot, we do not have enough funds for the PE for 600 North and 50 West.
Okay, so you've already cut the...
Yeah, unfortunately,
You're welcome.
so.
Okay. Okay, so that is out.
Yeah.
There's still 12.
Mm-hmm.
So just for the record, it's the allocated column that we need to be mathing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else to offer.
I've been helping you with money for the past couple of years.
It's not what you did for me yesterday, Doug. It's
Oh, okay. We'll have coffee tomorrow morning.
There you go.
I will say for the emergency vehicle preemption, if it works for West Lafayette, I just spoke to the fire chief. He's fine with us putting ours off till the following year, so that works for us.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
How much does that move?
That's already shown. That's those kind of, I don't know, goldish highlighted where the 750,000 for West Lafayette is swapped to 26 and the 1.08 is swapped to 27. That's what Doug was talking about.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with a spreadsheet so that we could sit and look at it and then play with numbers. Gosh.
So basically, as we have it shown right now, we would need to reduce either the 5.09, the 750K, or the 712K, or some combination of those by $12,522 to make that year good.
I'm asking West Lafayette, do you have estimates for the right-of-way yet, or is that
For which phase?
on
Soldiers Home?
Phase 1 of Soldiers Home Road? Is that 712, 536, is that actually what is being offered, or have appraisals been done? Is that just an estimate?
To me, it's a little confusing.
Okay,
I think
how can I help?
Doug knows better than I do, so I'll defer to Doug for that response. But I think that should be enough, because for Phase 1, we don't really need right-of-way until 26.
Correct. Right now, the issue came down, and one of the reasons why it was split into two phases is because there is an issue further to the north with a historic, or what some people are calling an historic neighborhood. So in order to move the southern project forward, it was split into two. The amount here shown was from the engineer, the estimate, and that was basically from the previous tip. They are right now trying to finish up and should finish up NEPA basically late spring, early summer. And previously it was only programmed, it was programmed over 2 years. But since NEPA held it up even for the first phase, that's why they're asking more for this. The number has not changed for quite a while, so there is a possibility it may go up or may go down. But we are working off basically a number that we've had for a bit. Does that help answer that question?
Yes. Yeah, I'm just thinking in our South 9th Street Phase 1 project, that is likely to be higher.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just checking to see if maybe there was some room in the right-of-way for Soldiers Home Road. I mean, it's $12,000, so
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think we would be okay with lowering ours by the $12,522.
Thank you. Okay, well, that takes care of 1 year. Okay, so, thank you again. Now, 27 and 28, yeah, this, I think we probably need to talk about these together. 27, as you see the requests, there was funding for basically, the request was for the emergency vehicle preemption for the next phase of South 9th Street and then Soldiers Home Road. And the options, of course, included, we could include back the PE for 600 North and 50 West, or then include the PE for the next phase of Soldiers Home Road, Phase 3. But when you look at 2028, there's a lot of requests there for funding. We have the big project, of course, is funding construction for the first phase, and then the estimate for PE for South Street Phase 3, and then also the funding for the roundabout for Soldiers Home that ties into that. So while it says the 7.38 million, it's actually more than that because you need to include the roundabout. And then you got the Phase 2 Soldiers Home Road, the right-of-way for that. And then you have the PE, of course, which I mentioned. And then actually we have right-of-way program. That's when that was requested. So basically when we looked at how we could afford this and financially constrain it, we definitely need to program the Soldiers Home Road Phase 2 project in 28, and then the South 9th Street project construction Phase 2 in 2027. So that takes out big chunks. For the emergency vehicle preemption, we had to add that back in or move the 1.8 to, or 1.08 to 2027. Yeah, it seems like that gives us a balance of 2.57 million, but when you look at the 28, we're going to need more money. Unfortunately, just no getting around it. We're going to have to do a trade. So when we started looking at this for 27, we're recommending at least putting the money into construction phase for South 9th, and then the vehicle preemption. And then we can program something else, but we will need at least 2.2 million basically to afford the Soldiers Home Road Phase 1 project, Phase 2 right-of-way, and then, of course, constructing the roundabout. So these 2 years, unfortunately, we're going to need more in 28 than in 27. So basically, yeah, this is kind of tough. We will have a balance in 27, but we will need to move basically 2.2 million over to 28 through MPO trade. So now what do? We will have a small balance, not enough for PE for the 600 North, 50 West project, and not enough for PE for Soldiers Home Phase 3. Do we just program the balance, which would be like 348,000 in 27 to like South 9th Street or vehicle preemption, or carry it all over and program the balance into the 28 projects? So there's a little more options here, which kind of like, well, what do we do? We need to fund these certain ones, but we now have some options on how to play around with these funds. So
I may make a recommendation just to get the conversation started. If we go ahead and put in that 2.575 million as a trade in 27, so that'll be a negative because we'll be giving it away, right, and getting it back in 28. And that'll take care of 27, and we can just focus on where to put the 348 in 28. I think that might be the easiest way to start. That's agreeable to everyone?
Is there anything that's shown in 28 that could be shifted to 27 so that not such a big trade needs to happen?
yeah, that's a good question. Well, the construction of Soldiers Home Road, I don't think that's going to happen because you have all the parcels along the road that need to be purchased, and we're not even started yet on right-of-way acquisition. So that would be very difficult and challenging to do. Your thoughts, Natalia?
I would agree with that. The current schedule we have for Soldiers Home, Phase 1 is pretty tight as it is.
Would it be possible to the roundabout doesn't have any right of way, right?
I can consider that.
If you move that up.
But then that would be let under two contracts.
Right.
Then we'd have to get a third. So then we could let the contract, NDOT would let it for just the roundabout construction. And then they could have then the next contract the following year for the road north of that. So it would be construction over two different contracts, 2 different years. So that's are you following with that?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way it is now, though,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is moving the roundabout ahead of the road, which kind of makes physical sense anyway, because you're moving north, right?
Right, I mean, and that, yeah, because you'd be doing the roundabout, that would be one NDOT contract for construction in 27, and then the road part would be construction the following fiscal year, but then that again would, depending, because I don't think there's any right-of-way except for maybe a small corner, and that's it, so that is a possibility.
It could be accelerated a lot easier than anything else.
Right, we need to move on the utility relocations ahead of sooner as well, so I don't really know how that,
Oh, there's relocations in the roundabout area?
there will have to be, yeah.
And is the intention to package those together and let them together?
The intent was to do both at the same time.
Yeah, so there would be increased engineering
Yeah.
costs and things to package 2 different projects.
And then for phase 2, for the Soldiers Home Road for right-of-way, that's a good question. I don't think it's going to be moved forward, or could be moved up any earlier, because with the meeting yesterday afternoon on the project, the sub-consultant looking at the NEPA was discussing definitely the neighborhood is a 4F concern, and they're thinking that it might even take even longer to do that. to get it past the NEPA process. So that is still a concern.
It seems like a good idea to not borrow, like you're saying, not trade as much, but it doesn't look like there's much that can move.
Stu, the last one is the only other one. Could the right-of-way on 600 be a year sooner? The PE is 26.
Yeah,
That's
right
the only
now,
other one up there that no one's asked about yet. Moving the right-of-way phase a year earlier.
and Stu would have to do, encumber the cost completely for PE.
Yeah.
So,
That was kind of a given. That's
Yeah.
kind of the way Kathy's pushing us too.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On there, because that was a big pot of money, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a definite feeling that we were getting more than our fair share.
Okay.
So I'd kind of just assumed that we'd be funding PE, but the right away, the urban Route 2
Mm-hmm.
right away is fairly straightforward, and I think there might be an overestimate there because the school's going to donate everything.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we just have to get a few parcels for sidewalk from Harrison,
Okay.
Highland.
So we could move that project, that funding for that phase over to 27.
For the right of way.
And then basically the balance would pretty much closely match what we need to fund for the construction for the road, phase 1, the roundabout, and then the right-of-way for phase 2.
And balance 28.
Yes. It's pretty close.
And Doug, you don't necessarily care how much money is traded, just so there are fewer trades.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. So does that seem agreeable that we move the right-of-way phase to 27 and fund that? And then the balance be used to fund the 3 listed in 28. And then whatever residual amount is, we can add to, say, for example, recommendation would be then construction for Soldiers Home Road. Or if we want to move the balance to the 600 North, 50 West, and just the full difference, the 348, 28, just move that to the right-of-way phase for Stu's project. And then the balance would be what we need to zero out for the other 3. Would that be agreeable?
You get it?
Okay. Okay. Sorry about this take so long. So thank you, looking at the 29 and 30, man, 29 is basically, we right now have not too many requests. And then 2030, if you see, well, we just have a boatload of requests. What we were looking at doing is, since we have a lot of funding available in 29, that the 600 North, 50 West urban portion, the CE and construction be funded in 29. And then whatever else we want to fund, we can, or we could leave it just, there's a positive balance. And then for 2030, basically, we'll need to program phase 2 for Soldiers Home Road, and that will need pretty much all of the funding for that fiscal year. Actually, it'll need a pinch more. So,
All right, real quick, just to catch up for the display, what do we want to do with this last 45? Were we putting that here, or were we putting that to one of these?
Well, maybe if we put it over into the right-of-way for 600 North, 50 West. Would that be acceptable? Thank you for.
And you're reducing the transfer. I mean, we're getting out to the point where we really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, for the next 2 years, again, you know, the first 2, 3 are the most critical. For the 2 out years, of course, 2030 is information only. 29, you know, the reason why I was suggesting funding construction 600 North, 50 West is that we do have that 2 million extra, and we do have funding for the project. So if we want, we could just leave it as is. We will need to address, though, the negative balance in 2030. I mean, we could simply just, again, and this is just basically math because we'll do this again in 2 years, just show that we reallocated or asked money from another MPO for that amount to just balance it out to zero as one option. And then we could leave that positive balance for 2029 at this time, you know, because these are basically the 2 out years. You know, we'll be redoing this again in 2 years. So
That's a very reasonable option. I don't know if there's any value. You could also move the PE from 30 for both those jobs forward the start a year earlier, but I don't know. That's just another idea. I don't know if there's value in that.
Just speaking about the trades, sometimes it is easier to do those like the farther in advance we can do them. So because other MPOs are also developing their tips right now, like we've seen an increase in the like email traffic that we're getting with requests for trades in various years, and everyone's kind of trying to sort it out. So now is like a good time to program fake trades in out years.
Right.
so to speak, or not fake trades, but trades that haven't quite been totally hammered out yet.
So do you think there's more value in having more extra money in 29 as far as trading? Is there any value in that number being higher or lower? Right now it's unknown, right?
Yeah, it's just going to depend on, so the construction really is the big thing, as you know. So the more like we can have to move around for construction. So if we were to think, oh, we are going to have a big construction in 30 or 31 or something, then we could like hold that 29 for something big in 31, which is outside of the scope of what we're doing, right? But in a couple of years it won't be.
And another option here is that there's been discussion regarding improvements at the 26 West intersection at Lindbergh, 400 and Jackson Highway. I think the goal was for 2030 for construction of that project, but you know, Soldiers Home Road now, unfortunately, you know, it will take a higher priority and get funding first. If there's a possibility, if we allocate a bit of funding to that project in 29, is that too soon, Bill, or would it be something we looked at next time, 2031?
Cannot give an answer today on something that far out, which is the same thing on all of this. It's just too many unknowns right now. All of those things are possible. It could come earlier or be delayed a year. You're early, you're late. don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, is just so far out, I know we talked about the fact that during the development on the 5600, the Ferguson intersection is, we've got warrants for a light there, and that is in the urban area.
Yeah.
So there's another, which we figured we're just at risk.
And then again,
You're
we'll
always
need to
at
know
risk.
how much funding Kathy's going to give us for Group 2.
But she's not going to give any for Group 2.
Or not Group 2, I'm sorry, Group 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm at risk there, and we're at risk here because we know the signal's going to get added. So, yeah.
So we have several different options. One is that we could leave the balance in 2029 as is. We could program funding for PE for any additional projects, for example, the roundabout or Yeager Road, or even the South Street Phase 3, thinking of that. We could do that. And then for 2030, we definitely would need to use all of our funds for construction, but we probably need to show at least that we're going to do an MPO trade to fully fund it. So what are your thoughts on the committee is which one?
What about what Bill was saying about moving the PE from 30 to 29 just to make the math work? I mean, that's what you're looking for right now, is to make the math work, right?
Yeah, I mean, in 29, we could leave the big balance, but if there is a desire to move those projects up further, well, those two, and then even, I know this would be later for South Street, program we could program PE for that year. So it'd be thoughts is what you'd like to do.
We're pretty flexible on South Street Phase 3, but it would be nice if we could get some PE funds there.
So if we program PE from South Street, that would leave a balance of basically 1.4. And I was thinking, just show the math, and I think you already have it up there, moving 348,000, doing that. So moving any other projects? Should I be like an auctioneer going once? I need a gavel. Going twice? No. Comments, thoughts?
Were you asking about Yeager PE moving to 29?
I thought that's what Bill was talking about, moving those back. So,
I was just chatting
but what,
with
so you're
Tally
moving
about that.
650 from 29 to 30? Is that what you're doing?
That's what I asked about.
I'm sorry, what again?
Yeager Phase 5 and the Southbury Roundabout.
Yes.
The 640 shown there. Don't move it yet, but that's a question for Natalia. If there's any value in starting that a year earlier, at least on the plan, and if the answer is you'd rather not change it, it's your call. But the money is there; it could be moved a year earlier. That's the only reason I asked.
We can move it. I just don't have much. I think Yeager Road Phase 5 has been on the list for a while, and we haven't really discussed it. So I wouldn't want to take money from other jurisdictions if there's more guarantee that it will happen in 2029.
Okay. Okay. So does it seem comfortable leaving then the balance available for 2029, which we can do? We don't have to zero it out. And then the other ones are financially constrained as well. Does this seem to be an agreeable allocation?
Just to recap real quick, So we have 4 of the 5 years that are zeroed out, and then we have 1.49 and 29 that we would look to, at this point, either trade or, we may, as costs increase and phases shift, that may get very easily eaten up by, some of this PE and so on anyway. So we might not even have to do a trade in 29.
You're gonna PE in 29 and construct in 30? A 1-year gap?
No, that's unfunded in 2030. It was asked for in 2030. Oh, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's further out.
Okay, so that's, I see what's going on.
I think we could move phase 3. I can see that one going
Okay, so move,
earlier than Jaeger Road.
okay,
So you can move the PE for that one to 2029.
So the 400 to 2029?
Correct.
Okay. And then what about the right-of-way, though? Because that's not showing.
yeah, I mean, that would just be out, it would just be, we'd fund PE, so it'd be
Okay.
the
So we
400.
swap.
Yeah.
phase.
Mm-hmm. So that would change from to PE.
I don't understand what just happened.
Okay, okay, so,
Right-of-way turned into PE.
yeah, the request for that year for Phase 3 was, that was submitted in December, was for right-of-way for that fiscal year. So, okay, hold on. Basically, wait, shouldn't that be 500,000? Because PE was originally requested in 2027 for Phase 3. Tim?
As requested 560.
Yeah, 560. But again, the request was over 2 years, so it's more than just 560. You see where I'm, so.
Doug, are you saying 27 and 28, the PE combined was 1.2
Yes.
million?
Mm-hmm.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Tim's moving all of it now
Mm-hmm.
to an allocated 29.
Does that make sense now?
Asking for.
Yeah, I was just thinking we might not need right-of-way until 2030 anyway, because we have historic impacts through phase 3. So it might take us a while to get to right-of-way.
Okay.
So I think it works.
Okay.
So PE moving to 29 works right away. Where did right away move to? 31?
Yeah, 30 or 31.
Okay.
Yeah. 31, 32. Yeah. Okay. I'll be retired by then. So, okay. So, made a number of changes. We have just a pinch left in 2029. But we've done fairly well in terms of funding all of the construction phases and then the critical right-of-way phases and added funding for preliminary engineering here and there. So does this look good to everyone as the allocation? Questions?
There's a lot to look at. In 26, County Road 600 PE is not allocated. Does it need to show up sometime before the CN dollars in 29?
It should, but we don't have enough funding in 26 27 or 28 for that. So unfortunately, it'd have to be fully funded by the county.
But come from a different source. Okay.
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah.
Sue has magic money.
Yes. And if you have any extra hidden away, we'll take it.
Right now, I'm just moving everybody else's money around.
Oh, okay. Got it. I know this is a lot, and I'm sorry this is so painstaking, but I mean, we could do it, with staff, but it'd be better coming it from this committee. Any other comments, questions? We feel comfortable with this allocation as discussed?
Yeah, I got right away in 28. My CN's moved to 30.
Is that possible?
Well, you moved it, so it has
Yeah.
to be possible, doesn't it? I'm not sure, but yeah.
I do think we would like a motion before we move off of this item to the next item.
Move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm assuming no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Still deciding. Aye.
Okay, so I don't have to say it. All opposed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, one last piece to this, and then we'll be done with this, is that in previous tips, we've always stated this, is that there are a number of basically what we have come up with and identified in long-range plans are issues, and in the MTP and in other reports, proposed projects on state roads, U.S. routes, and I-65 within Tippecanoe County. And in this tip, so it's an additional document, we have identified this. We have identified a list of projects that are needed to be done and a priority to this community. Again, more support to these individual projects. So basically, the projects are on State Road 38, sidewalks, on 52, sidewalks construction, which, I know that one project was supposed to be funded, but in the tip right now, it's not showing as funded because of central office. Am I correct on that, Bill?
I think we're waiting on this next call, are we not? Which is why it isn't shown yet.
Well, it was approved in December because it was a late approval, the announcement.
I'll have to double check.
Okay. Okay, but anyway, and then on 52 and Special 52, the need for reconstruction from a rural to urban design. The Northern Corridor, of course, has been identified since the late 70s. And then 65, 6-lane widening, and then also, we haven't forgot the windbreak project that disappeared several years ago. So anyway, what we are trying to do with this is tell people that we feel that these projects address some critical needs within Tippecanoe County, and that we are stating that these are a priority. So that we are asking that this committee recognize that the following improvements are a need and a priority to this community. So that's with a motion, not with an emotion. So, is that understandable?
Can I ask a stupid question?
Sure.
What is the windbreak project?
The windbreak project, would you like, or to
Sure.
fill it?
The I-65 corridor certainly has several areas where the way the wind blows, it's more subject to drifting. We've had panel signs that have walked off foundations, so there's unusual wind issues northwest of Lafayette, West Lafayette. And through the years, we've experimented with snow fence and windbreaks and ideas of how to try to manage that. And we've struggled with finding alternatives that can be tried without running into various conditions that may prevent us from trying things. So we thought we were going to get something out there. We'd love to do some things, whether it's fencing or vegetation, but right now we have nothing in the works because we had to back off from both fencing and vegetation. And it all kind of boils down to design spacing and how drifts form behind fences and vegetation. And you kind of, most theory says you got to be out further than our right of way. So we struggle with finding a way to move forward without having to buy more right of way. So problem's still there, idea's still valid, but we've not come up with a design that's buildable within the limitations that we seem to run into, which aren't all Indiana. So there's been some discussion over what rules and limitations really exist when you look at what goes on in Wyoming versus Indiana, but risk has caused us to back off. And right now we don't have a real project, just a need. That's a good term.
Yeah. But anyway,
Effectively, no offense on steroids. You've got to be determined.
Without buying more right away, I'm not sure that we're going to find a solution everyone's comfortable with the risk. We may just have to be out further away so that when the snow drift begins, it's away further. You know, a fence does cause a drift to occur at the fence, which is what you want, right? But if the fence is too close, that drift still gets onto the road. So a lot of snow fence ends up out in a field with a lease agreement or something. But we're looking for permanent features, and we thought vegetation, but Wyoming had some data that said we maybe need to be further away for that snow drift to still not create a risk to the highway. So anyway, long and the short of it, we don't have a project, but the idea is still valid. It just may take right away in order to do something.
exactly, and the need's there, and we just wanted to reaffirm so that nobody forgets about it. No, they are not in a priority. Just these are all needs and a priority. Or projects based on needs and a priority to the community. Correct. And again, we could have a vote on this, please.
Do we need a vote?
Well, usually we don't really need a vote, but we'd like to have a vote so it's an official action.
So you can see worded there, just to affirm the improvements as a need in the community.
And that they're a high priority to the community.
Go ahead, you don't even look
Okay, so moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion, questions? Being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I think that's right. You have your
Thank
motion.
you. Again, thank you for your time and your patience in getting through that painful exercise, but it's needed. We have it recorded, and we're doing this live, so the public hopefully is watching. Shall I go on, finish the next two?
Yes, the APC progress reports. Is that where we are now?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll keep these shorter. Basically, just another status report and how our federal funds are being obligated. We are still looking fairly good at this point in time. We're closely monitoring this. We do have a plan in terms of obligating all of our federal funds, and hopefully we'll have something in place here in the next month or two, but we do have a plan and are monitoring this fairly closely. But overall, we're doing fairly good on this. Regarding the 18-month letting list, not much to report. Projects 1 and 2 are on today's bid letting, and I didn't get a chance to check to see if the information was posted yet, but anyway, that information will be rolling out the next meeting next month. The project number 5, the State Road 225 Truss Reconstruction Project, if you remember in November of last year, it was well over the engineer's estimate, and it has been moved to the May 7th bid letting. Project 14, auxiliary lanes on 52, that was moved to a December next year bid let, or this year bid letting. 15, 16, 17, the first South 9th Street project are on a January 14th bid letting. And then we have a new one on the bottom, pavement marking, refurbishing on various routes in the Crawfordsville District Office. Any other comments or questions? Not only for this one, but for the other one. Okay, I'm done. Again, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone. So now we're at the point in our agenda where we're down to other business. If anyone has anything else to bring before the committee. Then after that, citizen comments. Are there any? There appearing to be none. I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed.
It's been a long
Thank
meeting.
you. We'll have our next meeting in the month of February.